So I guess Mondays are just going to be like political days now or something. I don't know. I kind of want to take this format and talk a little bit about stuff that happened the prior week, I think. So maybe that's what I'll start doing moving forward, is just like every Monday talking about the stuff that happened the prior week that caught my eye and that kind of stuff. Mostly because I really enjoy talking about this stuff. It's important to me. It's important, I think, to the country as a whole this year. So I just really want to talk about it and get my opinion about it, and maybe I'll just do that on Mondays, and we'll have other things for other days. What do y'all think? Okay, let's get started. All right, well, if it isn't one thing, it's another. I was just changing my setup around because I move things around when I record, and knocked my camera over and turned the lens a little bit, and I was paranoid there for a minute. So I'm hoping that everything's coming out okay. I think I got it fixed. But that was terrifying. But what can you do? So let's go ahead and jump into what. So the reason I wanted to talk about this stuff, I was thinking about it from last week. And, I don't want to do politics every single day, every single video, because that's not the only thing that I'm here for. I've got a lot of other things I'm working on, including some books that I'm writing and vlogs that I want to do, getting outdoors and hiking and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to try and limit the political discussion and stuff like that to a single video a week, unless there's something else that comes up that I need to do. So I want to talk about basically what happened last week and go over. Last week was a huge week politically. So we'll discuss that. And then each week going forward, I'll try every Monday to kind of, recap one or two things from the prior week. And we'll see how it goes. And I want to do it lighthearted with some fun and some humor, but also a little bit of a serious tone, because I think especially this year, it does require some seriousness because the stakes are pretty high this year. So last Tuesday was the Super Tuesday thing, the first big, several states were voting. I forget exactly how many. There's a bunch of states that were voting last week, and so I stayed up late Tuesday watching. Basically, I wanted to see how the Republican nomination contests were going to go, because we all know the Democrat contest. There's not really any competition, right, for Joe Biden. He was pretty much the only one going in. He's the one that's going to be there. And for the most part, we knew that Donald Trump was going to be the Republican nominee. It wasn't a matter of whether or not he would get the nomination. It was a matter of how much competition he might face, right? So with the Republican nomination, I was watching those contests very closely. And throughout the evening, the states were being called, and for the most part, they were going for Trump, with the exception of one state. The state of Vermont actually went for Nikki Haley. And I found that kind of funny personally, because Donald Trump is one of those kind of people. He's very self-focused. He wants to win everything. He wants to be over. Everything is super important to him. When he lost the popular vote in 2016 and 2020, both, he tried to make up stuff about how the popular vote was rigged and he actually won it and blah, 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 right? He wants to win everything. And so I know that despite how pompous he still seems on camera, and despite how little he says about it publicly, it is eating him alive to look at the map of the United States and see all of these states that he won, with one exception. Because let's be real, he lost Washington, D.C., but he was never going to win Washington, D.C. He didn't really care about Washington, D.C. So Vermont sticks out. And it's going to bug him. It's going to bug him so much, the fact that he lost Vermont. And I kind of find that funny. Now, the sad part is that Wednesday morning, Nikki Haley dropped out of the race. And I'll consider that forever and always the day that the Republican Party officially died. It's been in its death throes. But as long as there was still somebody in the race that was kind of calling Trump out, going the opposite of him. Not really opposite. A lot of her policies were kind of what he's going with, even though he doesn't have any official policies. But she was kind of the anchor that weighed him down, right? And now that she's out of the race, the GOP is basically his to control. And he is installing his daughter-in-law as the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. They've already said that they're going to be funneling basically everything they can bring in from the Republican National Committee is going to go to Trump, to his campaign, to pay for his legal bills. They've already said that, right? So the Republican Party is officially dead. Now, there are those in the Republican Party, I'm gonna guess former Republican Party at some point they're gonna have to like denounce the Republican Party. But like people like Liz Cheney or Mitt Romney, who have been speaking out against Trump for a long, long time. And they are the old school Republicans who actually, I still have some respect, even though I don't agree with them on policies. I still have some respect for people like that because, they have their things that they stick to, and they aren't bowing down. They aren't bending the knee to a sycophant who's come in and taken over the party. They recognize that that's not a good thing, and that's not the direction that they want their party to go in. So there's still a few of those people out there, but for the most part, I mean, after Donald Trump won, basically he didn't statistically clinch. I mean, he still has a few states to win before he gets over the 1,215 votes needed to get the Republican nomination, but he's basically there. And then people like Mitch McConnell came out and endorsed Donald Trump. And it's like, why did you come out and endorse him? What is wrong with you? Mitch McConnell is not... He's not running to be the Senate minority leader or majority leader. He's not trying to be the leader of the party in the Senate anymore. He's retiring from the Senate. This is his last term. And yet he still comes out and endorses Donald Trump. And I keep wondering, like, what is it that Donald Trump has on these people? He's got to have something, right? Like there's some tapes in Mar-a-Lago that are hidden away in a shelf somewhere in a bathroom that show Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and some of these... who knows? There's got to be something going on, right? Because otherwise, why the hell are these people endorsing this man? He's not good for the party. He's not good for the country. They're putting party over country for no reason. It wouldn't be a big deal if it was Republican versus Democrat. It was a normal, everyday type of thing. This man is a danger to democracy. And it makes no sense to me why there's still these major people who... other than the fact that they just have no spine and they don't stand for anything other than just trying to keep power at all costs. Like, that's the only thing I can think of, is that they see if they go against him, they might lose some form of power. So they're trying to keep power at all costs, and they're going to go and endorse him for everything they can. That's the only thing I can imagine. But that wasn't the only news from the week. Other than the nominees basically clinching their party nominations, we got to Thursday, and Thursday was the State of the Union address. Now, the State of the Union, it goes back a long, long time. In the Constitution, it's written that from time to time, the president will update Congress on the State of the Union. I don't know if that's the exact wording, but that's the basic premise in the Constitution, that the president has to provide some kind of update to Congress. What has been basically is an annual update. And George Washington started by doing an in-person update. Thomas Jefferson, he thought that was kind of over the top, and he didn't want to do it that way. And so he started a trend of basically just sending a letter to Congress. He sent a letter to both houses of Congress saying, this is where we're at. This is what my priorities are, that kind of thing. And that lasted for about 113 years until the early 1900s, when they started doing it more in person again. I believe it was Woodrow Wilson. I don't have the thing right in front of me right now, but it was the early 1900s when they started doing in person again. And ever since then, it's kind of built up until 1947 when it became a televised event. And then into the 1960s, 1980s, they started doing a rebuttal. The opposing party would do a rebuttal to the speech, and it became a huge affair, right? And so basically for the past 40 years or so, it's been this big, huge event that everybody stops everything for, right? And it's been the president's way of laying out not only to Congress what he or she, if we ever get a female president, wants to do, but also like laying out to the country, this is what I've accomplished. This is what I think we can accomplish. This is, trying to raise the morale of the country in hard times. And so coming out on last Thursday with Joe Biden, he was, I think most people probably would have expected him to kind of try, but not really do a great job. And the expectation, especially if you had never, if all you'd ever heard of was the fact that Joe Biden was kind of this like old guy and you would think to yourself, oh, well, he's just going to come out and lay flat, right? And then he comes out and he's on fire. from the get-go, he is going after Donald Trump. He's going after the Republicans. He's saying January 6th was an insurrection and it was a bad thing and we don't want any more of that. I mean, he hit it hard. And he went into a bunch of different, very high-level policy ideas and very high-level things that he's wanting to do. He didn't go into details of any of the policies, which realistically, that's not what the State of the Union is really for. The State of the Union is kind of to lay out your roadmap, and then the details are within the roadmap, the bills and that kind of stuff. You can go read the bills. You can go read the formal plans and that kind of stuff. So there was that. And I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I stayed up. My oldest stayed up with me because she's going to be voting this year and she was interested in it. So we watched the State of the Union address. And after the State of the Union, there is, ever since basically the 1980s, there has been like a televised live person from the other party that would sit down and give a response to the State of the Union from the other side. Right? So if you have a Republican president, the Democrat gives a response. If you have a Democrat president, the Republican gives a response. And every year, the party that is giving the response picks somebody who's typically an up-and-comer or somebody that they want to highlight for the future. We've had a few different times where the person giving the response eventually went on to become the person giving the State of the Union address. So, it's kind of a big deal to get your name thrown in there and to actually be able to give that response. And it can either make or break not only your career and night, but also like the party for an extended period of time. Some that come to mind historically that were kind of funny. Marco Rubio was one that really stood out to me a few years ago. He gave the response to one of Obama's State of the Unions, and dude's sitting there he's grabbing his bottle of water off to the side and drinking a bottle of every few seconds. He had a little bottle of water. Dude was all over the place. It was hilarious to watch. That is one that I will never forget. Just because, like, the way you could tell he was nervous, and it's normal to be nervous, but like, if you're giving the response to the State of the Union address, you need to be on point, right? So Republicans this year chose a woman by the name of Katie Britt, who's a senator from Alabama. She is if I remember correctly, the youngest female senator for the Republicans and the first female senator from Alabama, if I remember correctly. She's in her early 40s. So not that really matters, but it kind of does when you think of the context of how age has been talked about this year with the presidential election and kind of that the old gun versus the young up-and-comer type of thing. So that was the thing, right? And I watched that along with millions of other people, I'm sure, and kind of cringed the entire time. Partially because of the stuff that, the topics she was hitting on and the things that she was just outright lying on, which we've come to expect that. The Republicans under Donald Trump specifically have been lying about things left and right because it makes them feel good, right? So I expected to hear that kind of stuff. What I didn't expect was the tone of what I said at the time. She sounded like a Karen. She sounded like she was going to ask to speak to Joe Biden's manager. The way she was talking, the way that she was laying it out, she was very, not only that, she was sitting in a kitchen, which like, okay, come on, Republicans, put her in front of a pedestal or something, have some respect for women at least. She's in your party, for God's sakes. Like, at least have some respect for the women in your party. But they put her in a kitchen, supposedly sitting around the kitchen table to talk about kitchen table issues, which are the mythical issues that people talk about around the dinner table. Realistically, most American families barely eat around a dinner table together, let alone discuss politics, right? So she's sitting there, she's talking about this stuff, and she's just so... I can't even describe it properly. I don't want to say monotone because she wasn't monotone so much as there's vitriol coming off of her tongue. Every word she spoke, it sounded like she was ready to like stab somebody. It was like a Lifetime movie where you have the woman who's the killer, like she's the lover, and she's pissed off the guy won't leave his wife, so she's like standing over him with a knife, like, you will come with me, like that kind of stuff. And the whole time I'm sitting there like, what the hell am I watching? This is insane. where Joe Biden's speech should have been the thing to talk about at the end of the night, I felt like her speech was the thing to talk about because, oh my God, I was convinced she was going to come through the television at some point, or worse, like I was afraid I was going to stop watching it and my phone was going to ring and have a voice on the other end saying 7 days. Like it was a horrible speech. My daughter was watching it with me, and she said that she reminded her of Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of apt. It's like the saying the thing that is like that they want to say. They're sharing their policies, trying to make them sound like they're a good thing, but they just have that evil undertone. It was insane to watch. And I was like, okay, this is enough. I can't. So I watched that whole thing, and that was mind blowing enough. And then I wound up watching a little bit of coverage and then getting into some writing stuff. But that was the thing that really struck me. Just all of last week was insane to me, from Nikki Haley dropping out. And she didn't endorse Donald Trump, by the way. So that was the thing. I want to say she like half-assed tried to endorse him without endorsing him, because it was basically, instead of saying, I want to endorse Donald Trump, I think my supporters should vote for Donald Trump, she said, Donald Trump needs to earn our votes. And I think that was about as close as she could come to endorsing him without like going over that. It's yet to be seen whether or not she will actually endorse him at some point. Time will tell. I'm still planning on voting in the primary because I want my voice to be heard, even though I know she doesn't have a shot. Biden's got nomination locked up, and I already know who I'm voting for in the fall because I'm not ready for a dictatorship. And the thing is like this year, I heard a lot of people after Super Tuesday and the State of the Union both, where people were still saying that, well, Biden, he's not quite there with me. I'm a little, they're really wishy-washy with it, right? And then they're talking about the deal with trying to get peace in the Middle East and all that kind of shit. And I'm like, people, listen to me carefully. This is not a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This is a choice between democracy and a dictatorship. Donald Trump on Friday, that was the other piece of news, he met with the leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban, I believe is his name, who is a dictator who was democratically elected and then basically got rid of democracy. And that's what Donald Trump's trying to do. If Donald Trump was in power when Israel, when on October 7th, when Israel was attacked, we would have American troops on the ground helping Israel blow up buildings in Gaza right now, okay? So, yeah, Joe Biden's been wishy-washy about calling for a peace, calling for a ceasefire, right? But the alternative is that we would be helping with the bombing, all right? Like physically, our people would be there doing the bombing. That is the alternative. The same thing with Russia and the same thing with Ukraine and all that kind of stuff. If Donald Trump was president when Russia invaded Ukraine, we would have troops right alongside Russia rolling through Ukraine, okay? Donald Trump has already said he would tell Putin, hey, take whatever you want, do whatever you want, because he doesn't understand how NATO works, okay? This is a man that wants to be a dictator, does not understand how the world works, does not understand anything outside of getting himself in the best possible position. So that is our choice in November. It is between democracy and a dictatorship. Do you want to keep your freedoms and do you want to continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have and the ability to vote? Or do we want to have a dictatorship? The Republican governor or guy running for governor on the Republican side in North Carolina outright said he wants to take away women's rights to vote. He wants to go back to before women could vote. That's what Republicans want. They want women to stay at home, clean the house, raise kids, have kids every couple of years or whatever. That's what they want. We can either have a democracy and continue to live happily in freedom, or we can go to having a dictatorship and going back to before women had the right to vote. And hell, to be quite honest, we'll probably go back to having segregation if Republicans have their way. So that's something to think about come November. It's not as choice. It's not something where you can sit there and say, oh, well, Joe Biden doesn't quite meet what I think he should be doing. No, Because if you say that, if you vote third party, if you go out there, if you vote for anybody other than Joe Biden, you are voting to have potentially a dictatorship. That's just the facts this year. And hopefully we can get through this, and we'll reelect Joe Biden in the fall, and we'll get to the point where this right-wing nationalist party kind of dies off, and we can go back to some normal stuff, and then you can vote third party, vote your conscience, whatever you want. But this year in particular, it is super important. We have to get out there. We have to do things different this year. We cannot look at it like we look at a normal election. So that's my politics video for the week. Like I said, I've got other things I want to do. There's some hiking stuff I want to do on my channel. There's a lot of different things I want to do. Sharing my opinion on politics, talking about the previous weeks is only a piece of that. And if you're here and if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, I don't mind either one of those things. I'm okay with you disagreeing with me, but be respectful about it. That's all I ask. No ad hominem attacks. Try to articulate your views in a way that makes sense, especially if you're in the comments section. But even if you come over to Discord, we can chat on Discord in real time. You know, but you need to make sure your views make sense, and you need to be willing to say that if you're wrong about something, you need to be willing to say you're wrong. You know, you can't just buckle down. You know, all the people that said that, well, Donald Trump actually won in 2020 and it was rigged. The facts don't back that up, and there's still people that are saying, well, I don't care what the facts say. If you don't care what the facts say, you're not going to get along well with me. Not just politically, but other things as well. But if you made it this far and you did enjoy the video and you do like if you want to subscribe, maybe that'd be kind of cool. Subscribe. Maybe you've watched a few videos and you want to, you're like, hey, how can I help? I like this guy. How can I help support him? I've got a Patreon. You can go over there. You can sign up for Patreon. You get access to read my books and stuff like that early. GPS Signal Lost. I just finished the final chapter on that, and it's getting ready to release here in the next month and a half. But you can read it early. You can read the entire thing ahead of time if you just go over to the Patreon. So there's something that's over there as well. So we've got all of that going on. That's all I got for this video. I'm planning on being back on Wednesday. I'm trying to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week. I missed last Friday because I was busy writing and I just didn't feel like making a video. So, but I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.
So please don't make me do it, 'cause